Hello, today we're going to look at configuring the Pentaho Business Analytics Server and Data Integration Server for LDAP. To do this, we're starting off with a vanilla build of Pentaho Business Analytics and the Data Integration Server. We're going to log in as a regular user, configure the LDAP settings, and then restart the server. After we restart the server, we're then going to go and test that we can log in via LDAP. And once we're able to test and make sure that that's all working correctly, we will then go and configure the data integration server simply by copying over the configuration that we've just built inside of the business analytics server. All right, so let's start off with our vanilla build. We've got here a very typical the Pentaho user console, and we're just going to log in. And that's logging in with the generic admin user, so that I haven't done any configuration here, so the username is admin and the password is password. So the next part of this exercise is to go on to the administration perspective. And from the administration perspective, we go on to authentication, and here we're able to set LDAP or Active Directory. We just click yes. Okay, so the first part that we need to do is configure our connection to our server. So I'll just drop some values in here. And now we're connected to our LDAP server. Now Pentaho has added some quite nifty features in this release, which include being able to select values from a directory tree to be able to find your users. Now what we're configuring here is the administration user. So I'm just going to grab our managing director and use his details. Now the problem is Pentaho has configured this so that you're selecting a username and password via the tree. The thing is when you're connecting to LDAP, you normally don't use the CN as your connection. You're usually using your user ID. So what we need to do is we need to change that from being CN and change that to UID equals SAC. And that means that the user identifier will be used rather than the CN name. Now CN name should still be used here for the LDAP service. Now the next part that needs to be updated is because we're using a generic LDAP, we're not using the Apache directory service, we need to change this to custom configuration. If you're using Active Directory, you'll also need to use custom configuration, and you'll need to use slightly different search requests than what I'm using here. So the next part of the exercise, we're going to say that our search credentials are going to be our user tree, and we want to base it on, rather than the CN, we're going to base it on user ID. So you can see in the Apache user directory, I'll just reconnect to this. Okay, so you can see in the directory here that the tree structure is Sydney BizCube com, and it's under accounts, users, and here are all the users. And then for me, we can see that the UID is John. For Zach, the UID is Zach. So we're going to use that as our setup. That application is the Apache Directory Studio. I highly recommend using it or something similar when you're configuring this. It will help you understand what settings you should be using in here or what searches you can put in. So the next part that we're going to put in here is we're going to put in the object role that we want. Now, I haven't completed this from where I'm pasting it out of. So what I want to do is I'm going to add in here cn equals Pentaho star. So what this is telling the system to do is it's going to go into the groups folder and look for anything that's got the class of POSIX group and the name starts with Pentaho. So if we test this, you can see that we get back the Pentaho authenticated, Pentaho admin, Pentaho dev, and Pentaho CEO. If I remove that little filter, that's going to change the scenario and it should give back all of my different LDAP roles that we've got defined in there. So I want it limited, so I'll just put that back. And as before, that's all correct. Just to go back up here, so on the users one, we can test that by putting in a test account, and that should populate with all my different settings in here. So the test features are really useful to be able to understand what's that everything's working correctly. All right. So we just put back in here our group role search, and the next part that we want is in our version of LDAP, you want to be part of the members category. So if I go and look at the Pentaho admin role, you can see that there's a element here called members, and here are all the members that are in that group. And we don't have a role prefix, so we can just leave that alone. Now you can test that in two ways. So we're just going to grab that user. Now to test, we can put the user din in here and the username of Zach. If we hit OK, it will come back saying that it's authenticated correctly. So we go and save this, and it's going to come up saying that everything's been saved, but we need to restart the server for it to take effect. So we'll go in and we'll log out. Okay, so we've got the server running on a Ubuntu server. So we'll just go and stop it. Okay, so that has stopped. Now if we go into the Pentaho system folder, we can see that Pentaho has gone in there and done some modifications on some files. So it's updated the security.properties, it's updated the repository.spring file, and it's updated the application context LDAP file. So the security, all they've done is change it to be the provider equal to LDAP rather than Jackrabbit, which is the default in version 5. In here, the big change from what was the default is here. They only update the single tenanted admin username. What Pentaho is going to do behind the scenes is it's going to take what we set up as our administration user and automatically use that administration role, and automatically replace that everywhere where it sees administration within inside the system. So we don't need to make any changes there. So if we go and have a look in application, VI application context security. Now in here we can see that the administration group has been set, so administration user and role. So we've got Zach and Pentaho admin. The thing that it doesn't do correctly is set the all users roles. Now this doesn't seem to be a problem for the BI server, but when we go and copy this over to the DI server doesn't like it. So we're just going to change it here. So this should be POSIX so we're going to put in there we want it to be POSIX, and it's going to be account. It's going to be the class type. This here place needs to be users, and we need all the other stuff from up here. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it down there. So the search space is going to be users, accounts, Sydney, BizCube, etc. And the last one where we're looking for the attribute, which is user ID, which is completely correct. So we just go in there and save that. So now we can go in there and we can restart the server. So we're going to restart it with logging turned on so that I can actually see what's that everything's starting up correctly. Now I do expect to see a couple of errors here because it's going to now go looking for a user called admin in a couple of places, and that user no longer exists because it's talking to the Active Directory. So if I refresh this, so here's the refresh. So we'll find that admin password no longer exists. So if I log in as myself, and now I'm now able to connect to the server successfully. And I can come in here and I can have a look at the administration role. So you can see now that in administration, it's got this admin role, administrator role. So what it's done is it's actually replaced the role that we originally called it, which was Pentaho-admin in our LDAP, and it has mapped that to administrator. Now for the normal case is that you also have a secondary role, which is called authenticated. Now, the authenticated role has been deprecated, and it assumes that if you can log into your LDAP, you are authenticated. You can lock it down to a role, however, you need to modify all the normal files, so the application, the Pentaho.xml, and a few other files to say what a authenticated user role really is. Okay, so under here we can still see all our LDAP settings, so that's all good. So yeah, we can see that we've been able to successfully log in and set up our server. One of the things that you will note is it automatically creates a entry for executing the audit logs. It looks like the audit log has executed in here. No, hasn't executed yet. What will happen is, because it's been told to run as admin, it's going to crash because it's going to say that user's no longer valid. So it's good to come into the schedule and just tell it to rerun. And by telling it to rerun, it's going to refresh itself, and it's going to say that it's now me who's running it. Sorry. Edit. Edit it. Hit OK. Then it becomes myself, and then I can come in there and schedule it, and it will go off and run in the background, and there it's running on the logs. So that's all fine. Seem to have multiple instances of this in here at the moment, so I'll just delete them. Cool. So that's everything set up nicely. So now I've got a complete LDAP installation, and everything is fine. Now, to do my DI server, unfortunately the DI server doesn't have a nice console like this. So if I try and connect to my DI server at the moment, the only thing I'm going to see when I log into it, and I haven't done any configuration, so it's just going to be admin password. This is the interface you get. So there's no way of automating the setup for LDAP in here. All right, so let's go and set up the DI server. So if I go down one directory to my data integration server, all right, so we need to copy from the BI server the appropriate files and overwrite them in here. So if I do an ls-l BI Pentaho solution system, actually I need LRT. All right, so now I know that which files I need to copy. So if I just do cp Pentaho BI system, copy that to local. Next one will be repository. To here. And then we'll be doing this application context. So now we can see that those 3 files are being updated. All right, let's go and shut down our DI server. And we'll start it up again. Okay, so that's connected. So if we come back to here, we're looking at the DI server because it's 9080 up the top there in the URL. We'll just do a refresh of that. Now, as said before, admin passwords should no longer work, which is correct. So if I use John, didn't redirect properly the first time, but there it is, all fine. And we can see that everything's loading correctly in here. Now if I open up the data integration client, I can connect to the repository. So my repository settings are as per normal, so I'm just pointing to the server like we were before. And if I put in John, and now I'm connected to the repository. Because this is a vanilla installation, there's actually nothing exciting in the repository anyway. So there's no content per se in there. What you can see is my roles and what security rights have been given. And you can see that there is an administration role, but again, that administration role has been converted back to what we've set here as our administration role. So this is this administration role here now automatically links to anywhere in the system where it has administrator as a role. Okay, so I hope that's been useful. We've had lots of people have lots of fun with LDAP in the new version of Pentaho. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll have some more in the series later on. Thank you.